In today's video, we're going to be talking about something that quite often gets overlooked on in reptile care, and this is regarding air temperature. We all know that surface temperature is important for basking as well as digestion, but most people don't actually take into consideration the air temperature of the entire enclosure. Now, once you actually start to understand air temperature and actually start implementing it, this is going to be a complete game changer, not just for you, but also for your reptiles' overall comfort and their overall health. So today we're just going to talk a bit about this, and I'm going to show you how you can actually do this yourself at home. On top of that, I'm going to educate you on exactly why it's important that we do test both the air temperature as well as the surface temperatures of our enclosures. So by the end of the video, you will have a much better idea on how you can actually do this yourself at home, but also you can go from being a beginner to a more experienced keeper as a result. So let's dive into it. Okay, so to begin with, why even bother testing your air temperatures in the first place? Well, reptiles are cold-blooded creatures. That means that their environment controls their body temperature, while surface temperatures, like basking spots, will help them warm up fast. The air temperature is what actually keeps them comfortable throughout the majority of the day, especially when they're not actually basking or wanting to bask. If your air temperature is too cold, then your reptile might struggle to actually warm itself up properly. And on the other hand, if your air temperature is way too hot, your reptile could overheat, even if they're in the shaded areas within their enclosure. And if I'm completely honest, this is exactly why we test both the surface temperature as well as the air temperature. And by doing this, we're creating a temperature gradient from one side being hot to the opposite side of the enclosure being a lot cooler. But then there's always going to be an ambient air temperature to the enclosure. And by doing this, it basically allows your reptile to move themselves around within their enclosure and basically just self-regulate themselves, just like they would do in the wild. Now, I understand if this isn't making sense to you, so I'm going to try and explain it in a more real-life scenario. So hopefully you might be able to understand it a bit better if I explain it in a different way. So in order to explain this, let's just say that you're going on holiday to another country, and you've got to take a plane to get there. So you jump on the plane, you fly to the country, and you're waiting your turn to leave the plane. Now, as you approach the plane doors and you take a step through the plane doors, you're immediately hit with a wave of hot air. This hot air that you've just been hit in the face with is the air temperature of the country that you're visiting. So that's a good way of explaining the immediate air temperature that you would experience when you arrive at the country that you're visiting. So now let's say that you've decided that you want to visit a beach. You want to visit this specific beach that's really sort of secluded. So you make your way down to this beach, and in order to get to that beach, you've got to walk across a load of different rocks. So you start making your way across these rocks, walking through all the paths and whatnot, climbing over the rocks. And then you realize, actually, it's going to be a lot easier if I start using my hands. So you start reaching down to stabilize yourself on the rocks, to grab hold of the rocks. And as you touch that rock, you'll likely be like, oh God, that's a little bit hot. Now, when you touch the rock and it was hot, that is the surface temperature of the rock, which is going to be completely different to the air temperature that you're surrounded by. And you'll likely find that the surface temperature is hotter than the actual air temperature around you. So this is the best sort of way that I can try and explain the difference between air temperature and also surface temperature. Another good way to explain it would be, let's say you walk out of your house on a hot summer day. Again, you're going to be hit with a wave of hot air. And now let's say that you're walking down the road. If you look in the distance on the pavement or on the road, you'll likely see the heat coming off of the tarmac on the roads. Now, if you again reach down and touch the pavement, you'll likely find that the pavement is hot on a hot summer day. And you'll likely find that the temperature of the pavement is a lot hotter than the air around you. So the heat on the pavement is the surface temperature, and the heat around you is the air temperature. So I hope that these two sort of examples have helped you sort of understand air temperature and surface temperature a lot better now. And it's important to remember that you could have absolutely perfect surface temperatures on both the hot side and also the cold side of your enclosure. But then the air temperature in the enclosure could still be way too cold for your specific species that you're keeping, and therefore your reptile might actually stay cold a lot more of the time. And obviously if the air temperature is too hot, then this could also become dangerous too, just purely because they might not be able to cool down quickly or cool off enough. So definitely keep in mind that you could have perfect surface temperatures, but then at the same time your air temperatures could not be correct. So, what air temperature should you aim for? If I'm completely honest with you, this will 100% depend on the species that you're actually keeping. Obviously, a lot of different species come from different countries or different regions, so therefore their surface temperatures and air temperatures are going to be different to one another. So what I would recommend doing is, first of all, start off by learning what your reptile's ideal surface temperatures should actually be for both the hot side and also the cold side. Then get your enclosure running at these temperatures for both the hot side and also the cold side, and make sure they're reading correctly. And then simply go and do some research on your specific reptile's natural habitat and just simply look up the average daytime temperature within that country or region. So for example, if you have a bearded dragon, I'd be looking at Australia and what their average day temperatures are, and this should give you a good idea of what the air temperature should actually be. That's basically everything that you need to know regarding air temperature. Let's now actually show you how to do this and actually test your air temperatures in your enclosure. And then I'm going to tell you how you can tweak it if your enclosure isn't running correctly. Now, for the actual testing of the air temperature, all you're going to need is this one device, which is a digital thermometer. I definitely recommend a digital thermometer here, rather than one of the little dial thermometers. We also don't want to use the infrared gun because this is going to test the surface temperature rather than the air temperature. So go and get yourself one of these digital thermometers. So now let's actually show you how to test this. All you need to simply do is open your enclosure and place this thermometer in the shaded area of your enclosure on the cold side. Make sure that you put the thermometer probe in the shaded area and try not to let the probe touch anything. So don't let the probe touch the ground or any bits of wood or anything. Just have it hovering in the air. If you have a thermometer like the one I've got, you can just pinch the end of it and it will just bend it slightly. The reason why we don't want it to touch any surface is because this could give you a false reading, because it could be testing the temperature of that surface that it's touching. So like I say, just try and keep it pointing up in the air. And then all I simply do is I leave it for around an hour to 2 hours just to stabilize. Obviously, during this period, make sure to close the enclosure. I definitely recommend to give it a good amount of time. You could do longer than 2 hours if you really wanted to, but most of the time you can get this reading within an hour to 2 hours. But once you've let time go past, you can then read the digital thermometer, and this is going to give you the air temperature for when your reptile isn't basking. And that way you're going to understand what the ambient air temperature is, because the temperature in the shade is going to be slightly cooler than the temperature around your heat lamp. And again, obviously we want our reptiles to be able to cool down when they're in the shaded area. But this is going to give you a true reading of your air temperature inside your enclosure. So that's pretty much how you actually test air temperature. So you now might be sat there wondering, okay, well, my air temperatures are too cold, or vice versa. My air temperatures are way too hot. So let's just talk about this for a second. If your air temperatures are too low or too cool, then what I would highly recommend doing is take your heat bulb out and switch it out for a higher wattage. Obviously, when you change the bulb to the higher wattage, you're going to need to get your surface temperatures running correctly again, and then you're going to be able to test your air temperatures again. Usually, if you up the wattage for if the air temperature was too cold, this usually will solve the problem, and you'll likely find that because the bulb is a higher wattage, it's going to kick out a little bit more heat, and therefore the air temperature is going to increase. Obviously, if your enclosure air temperatures are running too hot, then basically we're going to do the opposite to this, and we're going to take our heat bulb out, reduce the wattage. So if you was using a 150 watt, try 100 watt, plug that in, get your surface temperatures running smoothly again, and then you can test your air temperatures again. Again, you'll likely find that the air temperature will drop a bit because the intensity of that bulb, or the heat that that bulb is kicking off, isn't going to be as powerful, so therefore your air temperatures should naturally drop a bit. And in all honesty, it's kind of just as simple as this. It's not actually as complex as people believe. I'm not going to lie, I used to struggle so much with air temperature, but now that everything's sort of clicked into place, I've really come to understand this a lot more. So this is how you can actually fix the problem if it is too hot or too cold. That's it for today's video, guys. I appreciate you watching and I hope that this video has helped you. If you did find this video helpful, I'd appreciate it if you drop us a like to let me know that you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and also follow us on social media. But yeah, good luck testing your air temperatures and I suppose I shall see you in my next video.